Hello and welcome to this tutorial. In this series we're going to build an application that provides full-text search across different entities. If you want to understand what exactly we try to solve here, which problems we try to address, I highly recommend that you check out the first episode where the problem is motivated much more in detail. Here I'm going to start with an overview about the technologies we're going to use. This will be Quarkus as a general app framework, Postgres as a database. In the second part, the fun will really start where we use Debezium to capture changes on the database. We will channel them with Apache Pulsar back into an application, and from there finally pump it to Elasticsearch, which provides us with the full-text search capabilities. As you can see, most of the applications are marked with a little star. That means I will install them with Docker. You don't have to use Docker, but that will make it much more convenient to install them and easier to follow this tutorial. So without further ado, let's directly jump into it and install our Quarkus application. Therefore, we visit the official website of quarkus.io. And Quarkus is a Java framework which is very similar to Spring Boot or Micronaut. So if you've ever used one of these, it will feel pretty familiar. When we follow the Getting Started link, we are greeted with some list of recommended prerequisites by the Quarkus team. So you should have some kind of IDE. You need a JDK version 8, 11 or newer, and you need some kind of package manager. For this tutorial, I'm going to stick with IntelliJ. So if you don't use IntelliJ and want to follow step by step, I recommend that you download it from the link provided here. I will use JDK 15, but it will also work with JDK 8 mostly. I will tell you whenever there's a difference. And I'm going to use Maven because the Gradle support of Micronaut is still somewhat experimental. Also, I can highly recommend you to check out the Quarkus documentation. I think it's very well written. You find it here under guides. And I really like how they clustered them into different categories, beginning with the getting started stuff that really guides you through some basic stuff where you have some success, where you can reach some success very easily. And then you have some core web data stuff, security, and so on and so on. I highly recommend that you check it out. I think it's very well written and you should definitely give it a try. I'm also going to use the Getting Started guide, and here you see again the prerequisites like JDK, Maven, and so on. And let's check out that all the basic stuff is there. So you can see, okay, I'm using Maven 3.8.1 and I have Java version 15. I tried it also with version 16, but there were some problems. So at the moment, I think version 15 is the most is the newest one that actually works with all the stuff I want to use. I'm going to skip over some part because I'm only interested in this bootstrapping command here. And as you can see, it's basically a plain Maven command which uses some Quarkus plugin and takes some parameters to bootstrap the application. So if you want to follow along, you can directly copy this one over into a terminal. If you are a Windows user, make sure you're selecting this one because the Windows terminal cannot handle these backslashes. I'm going to customize it slightly because I want to use my own domain name. So I'm going to use ghost letters XYZ, and I will also use this as default package name, and I want to use a less generic artifact name, so How about entity search? Okay, beautiful. So let's run it in a terminal. I'm just clearing that one up. So I paste it in here and run it. When you run it for the first time, it might take some time because it has to download a bunch of stuff. In my case, that's already happened before, so it's pretty fast. And you can see it ends with some success message and also provides you with the commands to start the application in the development mode. So let's directly try that out. You can see here the full path where it was created. So let's change over, and we're actually going to use this command. And it worked. As you can see, the Quarkus logo is printed out here, and it gives us some link to localhost 8080. So we can open that one and directly see the welcome page of our Quarkus application. I'm not going to go into the details of this page, so you can pause the video and read it or check it out on your own. The only thing I'm really interested at the moment is, okay, it provides some REST endpoint under the path /hello. So let's try out this. Okay, so this returns just some plain string. Okay, so I'm going to kill the application here because I don't want to use VS Code for development, and instead I'm going to switch over to use IntelliJ. When we look into the source code, we see that it created one package, which is exactly the parameter given here. I changed it, so you can basically see here the group ID is whatever you provided here as a parameter. The package name is whatever you provided here as a front. I did not change the class name, so we have one class named greeting resource. And when we look into this one, you can see it provides a REST endpoint under the hello path, which is exactly given as here. And it returns one string called hello rest easy, which we can see here. So everything is pretty straightforward. It's really easy to get started with Quarkus. And I can directly show you one of the nice features of Quarkus that I like for playing around is when you change the string here and refresh the browser, then you see that the app is not started. So let's start the app here. Maven Quarkus Dev. I'm going to undo this change for a second. Sometimes at the first start it prints some errors. I don't know exactly why, but it's running anyway, as we can see here. So now I'm going to change that string, and I'm just refreshing the browser, and you can see almost instantly it updated the result. So to make more visible what actually happened, I'm going to clear this terminal, make it a bit bigger, and change the string back. So I refresh the browser. And what you can see here, Quarkus in the development mode supports some hot reloading. So it actually stopped the application, compiled the change, and restarted it, which in total took only 250 milliseconds, so pretty fast. And this is really helpful when you're playing around locally, and it feels a bit like what you're probably used to if you did some front-end development, and you can basically avoid to manually restart your application just to see changes. Quarkus can do that in the background for you if you want. If not, then don't run it in the dev mode. This is pretty nice, and basically this is it for the first part. I just want to give you some additional hint in case that just in case so that you don't stumble over what I'm stumbled over. So I was wondering a bit, okay, how can I debug this application? Because at the moment it was started from a terminal. The terminal is just shown here in IntelliJ, but nevertheless it's an own process. And when I would add a breakpoint here and refresh the browser, actually nothing happens because IntelliJ did not connect any debugger to our process. So how could I start it from IntelliJ here? As you can see, it only is really this one class that we have. So by default, Quarkus does not force us to have some public main method, but without that, IntelliJ doesn't really know how to start this application. And there are different ways how we can fix that. One of them is, as you might expect it, just add a main method. So I'm going to open the guides again, and when we go to application initialization and termination, there we see a lot of stuff, and the first thing is actually how to add a main method. And I'm just going to copy that over, and as you can see now it provides this little play icon as you know it from basically all other applications, or also like Spring Boot and Micronaut. And from here you can select debugging. So I'm going to kill this one in the console with Ctrl-Z, otherwise I cannot start a new one because it would block the port. So if we start it like that, and I'm going to refresh the browser, and of course I have to set a breakpoint. Now it works. You can see see now here the stack trace, and here would be additional data from the debugger, and I can let it run again. And when I modify it, just remove that for a second and remove it and reload it, sorry, then you can see, okay, this is also working. So this is a pretty straightforward way, and that keeps it somewhat consistent with what you probably know from different projects. However, I prefer it not to add this main method because for me it's some boilerplate, and actually Quarkus is fine without you generating it manually. So I'm going to remove that one, and I'm going to stop the application. And an alternative, what you can do is check for Quarkus plugins. So go to settings, search for plugins, and then make sure you're in the marketplace tab. Normally it's often on the install tab, but make sure you're on the marketplace. And here search for Quarkus. And it will show up two plugins. The one is the official one from Red Hat, and the other one is the interesting one here. It's called Quarkus Run Configs. And when you install this one, so this button should be green for you if you don't have it. For me, it's already installed, so it's grayed out. When you install this one, it provides you some special run configuration. Going to close that and open the debug run configuration in that case. Edit configuration and go to this little plus sign. And you see these two Quarkus configurations. They are actually provided by this plugin I just showed you. So when I select the Quarkus Maven one and I give it some name, doesn't really matter, it's just whatever you like, and point it to the correct Maven project, give it some SDK, and you run the debugger. I'm going to add a breakpoint here again. And when I refresh, you see it's behaving just like the one before, but now we don't need any main method, and we can use the debugger as expected. And we're still in the development mode, so all the hot reloading is still in place. And I think that's a really nice way to work with Quarkus. Okay, that's it for the first real session where we did some code. In the next session, we're going to continue with the Postgres database and create our entities. So see you there.